What's going on, boxing fam? Subscribe or die trying. Now, this is a quick response video to 78 Sports TV's question of is Manny Pacquiao or did Manny Pacquiao ever take PEDs? Now, my history with Manny Pacquiao and his and his alleged PED use is probably a little different than most people. It kind of starts off where I first remember Manny Pacquiao in probably late '90s, I would say, late '90s, maybe early 2000s, maybe. Where really, yeah, it's late '90s, and I remember seeing him, and I hadn't seen him fight, but I read some articles and looking at him in magazines, and I knew who he was. I knew you know that he had a title, but I had never actually seen him fight myself. But I'd seen pictures of him, and I remember the first time I really remember one of the pictures that I seen, and the first time the thought even came in my mind. He's flexing like at a weigh-in, and he was super lean. Now, not to make it racial, but I hadn't really seen Asians or really most anybody else other than African Americans normally be that lean. But I dispelled that because there was Bruce Lee. He was super lean, and then there was other people of other races that are also very very lean. But it wasn't as common because even back then in the late '90s, just as far as fitness and as far as the fitness advancements that people have made as of late, and there's a whole big fitness movement. It wasn't really that strong then, so I didn't really see it as often. But it had been seen, so the whole thought of steroids passed my mind, but I didn't really take it serious because again, I'd seen other examples of people who were just as lean as him. So, and I'm following Manny throughout his career, and he's moving up in weight, and those lower weight classes, it'll be like moving up in weight is moving up, 4 pounds, stuff like that. So him moving up in weight was of no consequence. I didn't think anything of it, and of course, as we all know, he kept his speed and power. But again, those weight classes are all pretty much close to the same weight anyway. When you're below 120 pounds and stuff like that, the weight classes are it's not a lot of poundage between weight classes. So he's moving up, still keeping his speed and power, like as to be expected. And this is probably over the next couple years, and I didn't think anything of nothing. I just thought he was, he's a good little fighter. I like his speed and tenacity, and I like his aggressiveness. And then he was fighting Eric Morales. This is the first Eric Morales fight. Now, during the first Eric Morales fight, and this is I think that was after the first Juan Manuel Marquez fight, where it was where he knocked Marquez down uh, 3 times in the first round. This was after that, and him and Morales fought, and Morales beat him. And I distinctly remember during this fight, which I think was in maybe 2004, 5, maybe. But during this fight, the commentators mentioned that they thought all the wars that Manny Pacquiao had been through were might be catching up to him. And I thought that was understandable because he had been in a lot of wars. He fought Marquez. He was fighting Morales then. He fought Barrera. I think he might have had already beaten Barrera twice by then. Uh, and his Acapito Sanchez, Ladabwa. He had a lot of tough fights, and so I'm like, okay, I see that. Probably the wars are probably catching up to him, and pretty much gave the thought of, it's winding down for Pacquiao. And then he ended up fighting Morales again, which was another nip and tuck fight until probably, I think it went to round 10, and probably like the last 3 rounds, 8, 9, and 10 maybe, Pacquiao started pulling away and taking over. Before then, the fight was pretty close. It was pretty much like the first fight that they had. Pretty back and forth. And then the third fight, he went in there and just blitz Morales right up out of there. I think it was a second round knockout. I distinctly remember when Morales was the image of Morales sitting on the ground, sitting on the canvas after a knockdown, and he's looking in the eyes of the referee, and he's just shaking his head no. As if I have no intentions on getting up. So we pretty much can end the count right now. So, and then after the fight, Morales gets counted out. Then he immediately gets up after he's counted out. So he wasn't, he could have continued. He just didn't want no more. Pacquiao beat the fight out of him in 2 rounds, which was an amazing feat because Morales was pretty known to having the iron will and the iron chin and a never give up attitude. After the fight, I distinctly remember Morales saying that this was the first fight that he had with Pacquiao where he felt his punches. Now, mind you, he got stopped in the second fight. But the third fight, he said that he felt the punches basically more than any of the other fights, and the power just overwhelmed him. And he was actually talking about retiring after that. Like, it was pretty much a wrap for him. I'm not sure if he actually retired then and came back later. He might have fought a fight or two and then came back in the later years. But I know after that fight, he pretty much was like, this is a wrap for me. Because I've never been in a fight where I actually felt the other fighter's punches like I felt in this fight. Now, myself personally, again, will go back to my first thoughts of Pacquiao and PED use from when he was super lean from years before. I hadn't thought about it at all until then. And it crept back in my mind a little because I'm like, I distinctly remember them saying that he was on the downside of his career and these wars are catching up with him. When he fought Morales, during the Morales first fight. And now on the third fight, he's rejuvenated. And after that, we know he moved up and in the fought David Diaz, which he should have been fighting Juan Diaz because he was a real champion at that weight. He fought David Diaz and ran right through David Diaz, which, I wasn't surprised. And David Diaz is slow. Pacquiao pretty much just broke him down. But then after that, that was only one fight he had. He had one fight at 135 pounds. And then after that, he skipped the 140-pound division and moved up to 147 to fight Oscar De La Hoya. Now, if people know me personally, know I do not like Oscar De La Hoya. I've never liked him. never liked the golden boy. I thought Oscar got a couple gift decisions throughout his career. I thought Purnell beat Oscar. I thought Ike Corte beat Oscar. I thought that Felix Trinidad actually got a bad rap with the Oscar fight. Even though he won, he didn't get credit for it. But I remember Oscar saying in one interview that it wasn't that he was trying to secure the victory. He was tired and he was trying to keep from getting knocked out, and that's why he ran the last couple rounds. Because up until then, I had Oscar winning. I had Oscar winning the fight by, I think, until the last 4 rounds. I had Oscar winning the fight by one point, and the way the fight was going. Oh, excuse me, I had the Oscar winning the fight by 3 points, and the way the fight was going, it was nothing that was going to tell me he wasn't going to win the last 4 rounds, because he was in total control, and we all know he pissed away that fight and ended up losing, and I ended up having Felix winning by a round, but Felix never got the true credit for defeating Oscar, and I just never liked Oscar. So when Manny and Oscar were going to fight, needless to say, I was rooting for Manny, but it was upsetting to me, because I'm like, here's Oscar again trying to fight somebody smaller than him. The same way he fought Mosley, moving up 2 weight classes, but you ended up losing. The same way he fought Arturo Gatti, moving up weight classes. Like Oscar, had a habit of fighting smaller guys, and now you want to pick on little Manny, so you can knock him out and look rejuvenated, after your Mayweather loss. So I was irritated by that, and I was rooting for Manny, but I didn't think Manny stood a chance. I'm like, Manny's gonna run around, but the minute Oscar catches him, it's over. It's me and my friends. We went to a spot called Jillian's to watch the fight, and we're watching this fight, and they're not boxing fans really. They watch it, but they're not really. They're more casual fans, so they didn't even know who Manny Pacquiao was. And so I'm breaking it down to them about how he is, and how good he is, and how he fights. And the first round starts, and I remember looking over at my friends after the first round, and I said, "This ain't normal, Manny." And they said, "What do you mean by that?" I'm like, this Manny is different. Now, even though I'm rooting for him and I'm wanting him to win, and he's actually clearly winning, there was a distinct difference in Manny Pacquiao to me during that Oscar De La Hoya fight. And I noticed it in the first round. And, we all know Manny went on to destroy Oscar. And then Manny went on to defeat Ricky Hatton, and defeat Miguel Cotto, and defeat Antonio Margarito and Joshua Clottey. Ultimately losing to Floyd Mayweather. But the one thing that I thought was odd was that Oscar fight. And then after that, the same way people would talk about Barry Bonds and his HGH, his alleged HGH use, and the size of his head, I noticed that obviously Manny's head was larger. I remember Manny and Marquez standing side by side during their first fight, and Marquez had a larger head. And then when they fought for the third time, them standing side by side, Manny had a larger head, which made no sense to me, because they're both grown men, and your bones don't keep growing as an adult. So if you ask me, and then the obvious of Manny moving up that big in weight and keeping his speed, actually seemed like he was faster, and he gained more power, and moving up and not just moving up in weight, just moving up that rapidly in the span. You fought 130, you fought 135 once. I'm not even sure how many times he fought at 130. I think only twice. Then you go to 135, you fight once, and then the next thing you know, you're fighting at 147, and you're destroying the cats at 147. That and then coupled with the fact that your skull size has has jumped immensely, and you're faster, and you have more power, and you seem to have unlimited stamina, and you're taking the punches of these bigger, heavier punchers, and you're taking their punches, and you're walking through it like it's nothing. I distinctly remember the Cotto fight where he's fighting Cotto. He destroys Cotto, as we all know, and then at the end of the fight, Manny has his head wrapped up, and he said he had a busted eardrum, and I'm thinking, how's this? How's he have a busted eardrum and all this? Because during the fight, I didn't notice any adverse effects, anything. Like, it didn't seem like anything was hurting him. Fast forward to 2015 with the infamous Toradol shot that he requested, and the effects of what Toradol does, and masks the pain, and especially if there's nothing wrong with you, makes you, it amps you up. And they said, NFL players use it, during the games to get themselves pumped up and, not feel the pain, and they won't feel it for a couple days. Then the whole Miguel Cotto situation where you have a busted eardrum and your head's all wrapped up after the fight, but during the fight you show no adverse effects of his punches. It started making sense to me. So, do I think Manny Pacquiao has used PEDs? Absolutely. I believe he's used PEDs. I wouldn't even be surprised if he used them for his country. And what I mean by that is they developed a marketing plan and scheme and told Manny how much money he could make and what he could do. And Manny went ahead and did it to bring back money and glory to the Philippines for his people, since it's a poor nation. Even though that's absolutely no excuse for cheating in a combat sport. So yes, I believe Manny Pacquiao has used performance-enhancing drugs. Unfortunately for Manny, none of that helped him in his fight with Floyd Mayweather. Let me know what you think in the comments sections. Peace.